Three, two, one. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight I have a very special guest. Carolyn is in the building. How you doing, Carolyn?
I'm well, thank you, Jen.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for, I feel like you just signed up maybe earlier this week or 1 week ago, and now you're here.
I saw Joe's on here.
For sure. Yeah, she was great. So yeah, just want to thank you again for coming on and being open. For the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we do some warm-up questions, some intro questions just to set the tone, and then afterwards we'll jump into the main portion where either you choose your destiny or you can leave it up to the wheel of fate. Feel free to choose that when we get there, and after that we'll finish it off with some closeout questions. Sound good to you, Carolyn?
It's great. Let's go.
All right. Well, my very first question for you is, how have you been? You've been doing well. You've been doing great. How you been lately?
I've been doing well, going slower, feeling better about that, and still excited.
For sure. You mentioned going slower. When did you realize you were going too fast?
When I started going slower.
I got you.
I left a job that I'd had for over 20 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Education, and that coincided, unfortunately, with the pandemic, with COVID. And it really did allow me to create space in my life for what I thought was more important than what I had been doing. So, and that was slower. That was good.
For sure. So you said you were working in education before?
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, what's been the new life path for you after education?
Educational consultancy.
Okay, still within the industry, yeah.
Still related. I was an athletic director and coach for over 20 years at the high school level. And I decided to do my own thing, and working at a school wasn't fulfilling enough anymore. And I started doing things that were giving me more purpose, more energy. And so when COVID hit, or actually even before COVID, because I had announced my retirement in January of 2020, and then COVID hit in March, or lockdown at least in March.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I guess I better go down this other path.
For sure. I mean, that's pretty crazy. 20 years as were you always the athletic director, or is it something that you kind of had to make your way?
Athletic director, phys ed teacher, all rolled into one. We tend to do that to ourselves. So it was fun. It was a very fun career, very fun time in my life.
That's what's up. Yeah. I'm really big into youth work. I'm back working with the youth now. I've never really stayed at a job for 20 years. I have had my struggles, but working with the kids has also always been something that brought me back. So yeah, when I graduated college, I graduated with a recreation degree. And
oh, really?
Yeah, the first thing I did was work in after-school sports program. We were trying to go to different schools and get that contract with the school so we could provide their after-school sports. But yeah, did a little bit of coaching, basketball at least, and soccer, even though I didn't know too much of it. But yeah, so it's
oh
great.
My gosh.
Great to meet a fellow coach.
Yes, well, in recreation, it's interesting because my specialty is in sports, youth sports, and youth development and youth sports, but really the nature pathway and the recreational pathway is a newer sort of way I've been going, and I love it. So everything is related to like sports in nature in sports. I mean, it's all
together. Yeah.
interconnected.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I remember when I was in college for it, there was like the 5 main things you could do with recreation. Municipal recreation, which was like, the national parks or even the city parks. And then, physicals, there was like physical therapy, which was one of our focuses we could do. But yeah, it's all rolled into one. Well, I'm glad that you feel like you found your new path and you're moving along with it.
Yeah.
Life is all about that, doing new things. Moving on to some more warm-up questions. This next one is, what would you like the audience to know about you? I know you mentioned some things already, but is there anything you just want the folks out there to know about you?
For people who don't already know me, well, I have a twin sister. I'm an identical twin. That's usually one of the things that people go, "What? We didn't know that about you." I'm like, yeah, she's a teacher also. And I think that I love youth development and sports put together. And right now, I really want everyone to enjoy that. And I'm not getting those vibes in our world as much, right, with competitive sports. And so, I think I just want people to enjoy sports and all the positive things it does for us and all the difficult things that it brings to us.
Yeah.
And that we can do it together, right? That it always takes a team. I know that sounds kind of, cliche, but it does, right? And especially being Filipina, it's like so obvious, right? That's the pathway, the alignment that I know I strive for, right? And then I look at sports and especially youth sports, and I think, gosh, that's the funnest way to do things. It's like it's like the funnest way to be. It's the funnest way to learn stuff. It's the funnest way to be awkward. It's the funnest way to make mistakes. And if we do it with other people, then it makes it even more worthwhile, I think.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, youth sports, because, it sounds like you were a participant growing up doing sports. I was too. And those, I feel like I spent a lot of time in sports though, like practice was almost every day, or, every season there's a different sport, especially if you really want to be athletic and get into athletics, then it takes up a lot of your time as a kid. So yeah, I feel like it becomes a part of who you are as far as the stuff you learn from sports, right? Camaraderie, teamwork. Sometimes you gotta be patient. Hopefully, yeah.
We have to intentionalize that. Sometimes it doesn't, the intention to do that, and the assumption that people and kids especially who are exposed to sports, that they will benefit from it, but that's no longer an assumption that we can make. We have to intentionalize it, right? And we have to make it fun, because who would want to do anything that's not fun if you're a kid, right? So
yeah. And you said you're not feeling the vibes as it's the same. What has changed?
Well, let's put it this way. When because youth development also, right? You're in that realm. In the youth development industry, sports youth development industry, a lot of that is the competitive elitism, the sort of training for very, very few opportunities in college sports and things like that, right? But then you and I both come from a youth development lens where this should be afforded of every kid, everyone, right? The sports as a pathway shouldn't be just for the elite, or for the ones who are skilled or can be trained, or who can afford to be trained. It should be for everyone. And so the sports industrial complex now is growing at such a rate that a lot of it is really extractive, right? It's really not. Youth development is kind of like the softer, the softer sort of version, but it really is the main version, I think, of what sports could be or should be in our economy. But because it is an economy, because it is attached to a lot of those American values that I kind of clash with, right? And I think a lot of youth development tenets clash with that. So I wasn't feeling it. Like, why am I making, why does my high school program for sports have to prove itself by championships or ticket sales? We never even charged for admission, right? Why can't it be everyone has to play? Everyone can find a place in sports. And it doesn't have to be as an athlete. The sports culture is wide and inclusive, if we just ask. So I think like that was my thing. Like, why are we looking only to coaches, to hiring coaches, to hiring people by their record or by what they promise for kids? Why can't we just put really good people in front of good kids? And all kids are good, right? Why can't we just do that and then all have fun? So I know I'm really making it really simplistic with the fun part, but if I don't all the time intentionally put fun in there, it's gonna get co-opted by power. It's going to get co-opted by elitism. It's going to get co-opted by this dominant sort of like, I gotta be victorious over you, instead of we can be victorious together. So that's why I always emphasize fun, because I maneuver in a profession that, to me, it's a lot of adults and people who don't have fun these days. A lot of pressure on kids. We see that participation rates drop, especially for girls. They're told by our culture and by media all the time that they're never going to be good enough. They're not rewarded in our culture for being a good athlete, for being a skilled mover. They're not rewarded. So I want to change that.
I gotcha. I think you brought up a lot of things that I have more questions on, but I have to save those questions for later.
Right. Let's go on.
Well, let me think. I am kind of curious, the elitism and all the comparisons. Like, I guess if I'm a high school student, this is my experience. I wanted to be a professional, right? Unfortunately, my experience to high school sports got cut short because I've had a couple knee surgeries, tore my ACLs and meniscuses a couple times in high school. Like, so yeah, I never really got to go past wanting to be a pro, and then I was like, okay, maybe I could coach, and that's how recreation kind of came up for me. But yeah, so kids these days, like, are the kids that you kind of saw participate more, like how did since you were there for 20 years, how did you see social media kind of play into that? Were kids really more like aware of what was being said about them, or, you know, how they're coming off? Because, you know, there's a lot of kids who take videos during practice, or, you know, even in games, and it can go everywhere. And does it play into their head? Did that happen?
I worked at an all-girls Catholic school for those 20 years, so I'm grateful to say that I have always been an advocate for the underdog, right? And in our society, girls and women are always subjugated, right, in our society. So for 20 years, I had to be a really fierce advocate for their programs. And so what more of sports, right? Because we do have, there are a lot of girls who love to play. There are a lot of girls who are really good and really skilled. And yes, social media, right? Any media in general, right? So I don't want to be that person like to blame social media for all of our ills or anything, because I think that social media is also a way that we can. Social media was a way that I could have more students involved in the athletics program, right? If they didn't want to play, or they didn't consider themselves an athlete, and we know that girls already they opt out so early from sports because they have this ideal generally that, oh, I'm already not good enough, and so I'm going to focus on something else. But to say that, oh, okay, well, you have these skills that we'd like, you know, like, you know, if you are into like social media and posting and creating content, you know, we could send you with teams, or you could be like, you know, a team media, you know, person, or but all of them were also that. Like the school that I was at, I tried to really force girls to play, because I don't want them to already say no to themselves. You know, so we started sports like swimming, what else, like track and field, like the not traditional sports, at least for San Francisco city kids, right? And flag football for girls, which I love. And girls would say, well, I've never done that before. And I say, yeah, well, there are a few hundred girls here who are your schoolmates who also have never done this before. I said, I've never coached it before, but I'm going to learn too. And we're all going to do this together, right? Because it's fun. So especially for girls, and especially for girls of color, I almost feel like I have to like force them, choose a sport, choose at least one sport, one activity. And if you want to, you know, post about it, like we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how social media affects that. We'll talk about the positives and the negatives and how we could incorporate that, because I don't want to be that teacher that says, oh, back in the day, we, you know, I don't, you know, I value social media too, in terms of how we can utilize it in a good way. But that's also how I'm very aspirational as well about sports, right? So if there's a way that we can combine the two, align the two, and work for the greater good using both sports and social media, I'm all there.
I got you.
I'll try to post that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to kind of embrace all the new stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I was
we
just
need to help each other, right? Like, I mean, the students were the ones helping me with social media presence, and I didn't know how to like post anything. It'd take me 4 hours to do something, you know, and they would be helpful, and I would be more like trying to advise them on the kinds of content, right? Like what do you want to put out there? What sorts of advocacy do you want to do, or how do you want to frame that, right? So I like to think that we tried to work together for a common goal.
And that's,
which also is a very sports analogy.
I mean, that's the best part, right? When you are working together. And it sounded like, you brought two different things. You gave them that other perspective of like, what do you really mean when you could, post something? And then for them, they're helping you catch up with what's current now. That's something I need help with, to be honest. All I do is hit post, but I know there's a lot more extra stuff you're supposed to do.
Right. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating, like having a student or having a person who is skilled at social media content or doing that. I think it's a skill, right? And so when I watch them do this, when I watch what they do, it really is kind of like I get that same feeling like when I'm trying to like analyze game film, or when I'm trying to create a game plan or a strategy. It's those same sorts of skills, right? How do we accomplish something? How do we make this content and a post like look really cool and have all these effects, right? The same thing, like how as a coach, how am I going to execute on how am I going to have these players execute this play?
Yeah, I got you.
I get all excited.
I hope they were realizing the knowledge you were dropping on them as you guys were working together.
I don't know.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, a lot of my former students, as they get older, I do keep in touch with a lot of them, and they're just wonderful. Like they mature into life, and they've always had their own thoughts and opinions, and I just love interacting with them still.
For sure. That is the best part. Whenever I come across old students that I've worked with, now they're adults, and they're like, oh man, like it's great to see you as a person, and from the kid to the person transformation. It's amazing.
Well, I asked a few of my students who've also gone into the sports industry profession, and I've asked them, like what was it that in your high school years, when I was with them or around them, was there anything that I either contributed to or detracted from, right? That experience, right? Like, because we know like a lot of people get into coaching because they had bad coaches. Right? They're like, I'm never gonna do that to my kids, right? And so like, and it motivates them, right, to be a teacher or a coach, because they already have a relationship to sports, right? So I like to ask my former students, I always hope that I add, right? That I add this positive, relationship to sports and what it can do. But I know I've also done my share of harm to students, either in my immaturity as an educator, or my early days of trying to coach, and I didn't know my stuff. I was immature in that regard, or still learning, and I took it out on them. I'm just glad they talk to me these days. So
yeah.
And so they're open about it, and they're honest about it. So I'm glad that we can talk about that when my students will say, remember when you made us do this, and and you wouldn't let us have team meetings, and then you didn't let us go to In-N-Out after a game, and things like that.
I mean, it's great that you have these conversations, right? Because then it's not just a thought in their head, like, oh, I don't know what she would say, or like what she was really thinking. But then you're actually able to converse about it. So it really strengthens that relationship. And for them, you know, they have a story about you of like, oh yeah, I had this coach that was like super cool and like just super open and, you know, talk about things. And, you know, not everybody has that, right? So
right. Well, I know I also have former students that they see me walking down the street, they cross the street. And that's cool. Like, or, you know, they'll see me, like in Daly City somewhere. They'll see me in the city and they'll look at it like, you know.
you know, I think
that's cool. That's cool. You know, I see you and I totally respect that.
yeah, I mean, you know, that's more them than you, you know. That's just how I feel about it. But sorry, I gotta ask you this next question. There's 2 more questions in the warm up. This next one is: if someone were to pay you a tribute, how would you like to be honored? So if I was gonna tell myself today I'm gonna do something in the honor of Carolyn, what sort of act could I do for you?
I'd say try a sport or a game that you've never tried before.
I gotcha. Well, what's the last one for you? The newest sport or game that you've tried?
Oh, actually just last week. I went with my family to a park in Burlingame, and there were people there who asked me if I would like to learn how to play pickleball.
Okay.
So I said yes.
How'd you like pickleball?
I liked it. It's like tennis, you know, general racket sports. I love badminton, tennis. I still casually play, and so these people. It was an older couple. Yeah, I should say older. They're probably like my age. Yeah, just playing pickleball, and the woman was trying to explain all the rules to me. I'm like, come on, let's just play. Let's just play.
I'll learn as we go, right? That's usually how it goes.
Exactly. And you know what? Like, that's what we do to kids too. We tell them all the rules and all this kind of stuff. And like, guess what? That's not fun. You know, let's just play. Let's play. We hit it back and forth, explain the stuff as we go. But I want to get moving. So that's what I would do. So pickleball was my last one.
For sure. You know, I have a friend that's really into pickleball actually, and he's been like telling, like we played a couple times. There's no pickleball courts in SF that we know of.
Really?
So we end up going on tennis courts and just kind of like practicing rallies and all that stuff. But yeah, I love pickleball. Honestly, as I get older, that's gonna be a game that I can feel like I can keep going to, you know.
Then
and
we're gonna have to set up a pickleball game. You and me.
Okay. 2-on-2. You got one. You got doubles.
I got my son. He can learn too. Maybe we'll just go to the court and we'll just ask people there if they want to learn with us.
For sure, we gotta spread the word. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen the competitions they have on television, but my friend was showing me, like, it was on ESPN, pickleball tournaments and stuff. I'm like, all right, it's coming up. You know, I don't know when it was invented, but I think now is like the perfect time, because especially during quarantine, that was one of the things that got us out of the house, was just to go play pickleball. But now we know to do some sort of sport in your honor, something new. Have you seen the volleyball nets that intersect? So basically it's 4 players, one versus one, and it's kind of like Foursquare but volleyball. I haven't tried it, but yeah, it's something that I want to try actually.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds intense. But yeah, just wanted to throw that one out there.
Okay.
Last question for you in the warm-up is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
Ooh, I'm still discovering. I'm 53 years old, and I'm still discovering. So how do I know myself? I would probably say 8.5.
8.5, for sure.
8.5.
What would you say?
I get annoyed at myself sometimes. I'm like, oh man, right? I know that about myself. Like,
Oh yeah, it almost feels like we're always remembering things, right?
That's right.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah, re-remembering. That's right.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I hate it when I feel that. Like, I've learned this lesson before, or I've made this mistake before.
That's right. I made this mistake before. Like, am I going to go another way, or am I going to just like give into it? Right. Like, and we always have a choice there. We always have a choice there. I can go into my old habits, or my old, MO, as we like to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
How we operate, or we can throw something a little different at it. So I think I'm kind of used to that, because growing up with a twin sister, I think a lot of times I was always reactionary to her, because our mother dressed us alike, like exactly alike. We were twins, identical twins. And my mom dressed us up alike until we were 13 years old. I know, it's horrible. And our dad made sure we were in different classes at school, that we cultivated our own sense of, independence and our own sense of self. But definitely high school, I would like do the opposite of what she was doing. So, so I think maybe just all my life having that reflected back to me, like someone who looks and sounds and has the same mannerisms as me, it's forced me to be much more reflective. Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because she's doing the opposite, or am I doing this for another reason? So it always has me question my motivations for my behavior. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that you could have that kind of perspective being a twin, especially an identical twin. For me, I feel like I'm reflective because I kind of grew up as an only child, so I had a lot of time to just be by myself and kind of think. So that's how it started for me. But interesting how different we all kind of get that perspective in different ways. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I do want to ask you, what is your favorite thing about your personality?
Oh, I constantly have to chuckle at myself. I think that's it. Like, yeah, I think that's it. Like, I can't take myself too seriously. I can be serious about stuff, but sometimes I don't take myself seriously.
I feel you. You ever just, chuckle to yourself and someone asks you like, oh, what are you thinking of? Or because that happens to me when I just laugh at myself for something I did, and then someone wants me to explain it, and it's weird when you try to explain something that just made yourself laugh. But yeah.
Right. Like if I can't, oh my gosh, Jet, if I can't find humor in either some of the behaviors that I've participated in, or some of the ways I used to think about stuff, or some of the ways that I was adamant and so sure of myself. And now having those years behind me, when the world has really kind of played with me, right? And said, oh, so you think you're all that? Well, here, how about this? Be a single mom for 22 years. Oh, you think you're all that? You think you're a great parent? Well, guess what? You're going to parent again when you're old. In my 40s, I had my second son when I was 42 years old. I think if that's, when I thought I was done, I thought I was all that. By my older son he turned 18. And I was like, yes, he's out of the house. I'm not even 40. I can party. And then, and then no. So those sorts of things in life, just like, how can I not laugh about it, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's fun, and just when I think I've got it down, something else happens, right? Like, so.
No, I feel you. And so, I feel like sometimes it can be a bad thing. Like when I hear terrible news, sometimes I'll sometimes laugh because I'm thinking to myself like, wow, I can't believe it's this bad. And, you know, I kind of chuckle at that. And it's like, why are you laughing at a time like this? But yeah, sometimes, yeah, for me, I just got to think of the situation like, damn, this is really happening right now, and kind of laugh about it. But
right, because you know what, because there are serious things in life, right? And we still have a choice in that regard, right? We can, you know, it's heavy, and you know, we know that, and like I said, like I can be serious, or like I know that there are serious and important things to think about, things to do. It's important, but me myself, in terms of my own ego in relation to that, right? Yeah, I have to take that with a grain of salt, because I can only do what I can do with other people, and you know, like and I have to always still do something. So the thing that keeps me going to do something, whether that's, you know, advocating for youth sports, whether that's, you know, really trying to contribute to life, is hard if we're not having fun. Again, I bring it back to fun. Like
yeah.
if I'm not having fun, if I can't laugh at myself, then how am I don't clown people, you know, but at the same time I'm kind of like, yeah, like humans we're just kind of like, you know, crunchy and awkward all the time, not just in adolescence, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
for sure. Well, thank you for sharing, and we've actually made it to the main portion now. I know it took a while, but you know, speed is not a concern. Would you like to choose your destiny by choosing your own numbers, or would you like to go to the Wheel of Fate?
Wheel of Fate.
Wheel of Fate. Here we go.
In that thing.
And I do have an easy, medium, hard, so feel free. Oh, are you gonna get you got the vibe check. The vibe check is something new that I've been trying to work into the show.
Okay.
And it looks like this. The vibe check. I have four scales here, and we'll just go through them.
Did you draw this?
Yeah, I drew it.
So cool.
You know, I like to think I can draw, but I'll just doodle. But yeah.
I appreciate it.
The first scale that we're looking at is: are you open-minded or more closed-minded, or somewhere in between? Where would you put yourself on that scale?
Probably open. 3/4.
3/4?
Open.
For sure. The second scale is: do you feel like you're more of a deep thinker, or you like to stay on the surface with things and not really dig in?
Very deep. Too deep.
Too deep.
Too deep. I need to find easier language sometimes. I don't think English cuts it for me. So.
I gotcha. Moving on to the third one, which is: you feel like you're more of a sunny skies person, or more realistic, you know, a little more, you know, gray clouds, because, you know, it can't always be sunny. Where do you lie on that?
Correct. Well, I'm going to kind of convert that to partly cloudy, like I could feel the sun, although I know the clouds are there.
It sounds like the Bay Area, right? It sounds like the city.
Do I have a choice? I'm like, 68 degrees, this hot.
Yeah.
Like, it's too much. Yeah.
And then the last one is between believing we are all one or we are all individuals. Where do you lie on that?
All one. All individually one. Okay, so Yeah, so my consultancy is called Coaching Kapwa, right? And Kapwa, we know, is the Filipino concept of interconnectedness. And so we are all interconnected, which for me, that also means that we are all essential, right? We're all essential, we're all interconnected. So yes, we are all individuals that need one another and that rely on one another. So both.
Yeah. No, there's no right answer. I'll tell you that. But no, I love it. Kapwa, that's what you said it was, and that's the idea of interconnectedness.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to remember that.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all about it too. I really think that everyone has their role, right? I think this kind of goes back to, growing up in sports. You kind of learn part, like you have skills, everyone has skills, they can contribute to the team. And, I guess for the coach, it's up to them to kind of realize, like figure those out and empower the person to utilize what they're good at to contribute to the team. But yeah, I feel like you're just continuing that team mentality and spreading it in a different way. So if you don't mind me asking, with your consulting agency, what is it that you kind of do for the community?
Well, so Coaching Kapwa is a service. It's a combined holistic professional and personal development. So in my industry, in my profession, which is high school educational athletics, we're always student facing, right? We're always youth facing. We have to coach kids. We have to help kids realize their own skills, potentials, things like that. But then when it comes to our own well-being and wellness and our own self-development, our industry says, oh yeah, go do self-care somewhere. When we don't realize, or I think we are realizing now, is that I like to say that well coaches coach youth well. So if we're not well ourselves, then we are going to be that coach that's going to yell and extract and dominate kids because of that power thing. If we're not well ourselves, if we're not aligned with ourselves, if we don't know our own motivations, if we don't know ourselves, we're going to transmit that ego to kids, and that's not cool.
I gotcha.
So Coaching Kapwa is a combined wellness and professional development for athletic directors.
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever heard that, but it's funny.
It's new.
What's that? Sorry.
It's new. You could go to coachingkapwa.com. Check it out.
Gotcha. And if you're looking for that, it's going to be in the description and all that, episode notes.
That's right.
Interesting. So you don't have to give me everything, but if you could, what's one of your tips to feel more connected with? If I want to be more connected with myself, how could I do that? If you can.
Yeah, no, this is really an example of what I do with coaches and athletic directors, is that we do. I have I call it a Wellinar, and we really do a lot of meditative and reflection activities about our own relationship to sports as adults. So why we got into sports, what sports has meant for us in our lives, and why is it that we want to continue to be involved in youth sports. So many coaches I know have a very loving relationship with sports, right? It's afforded them a number of benefits, and so when when the hard work of transmitting this love, or this relationship, right, to a group of kids, who like can work your nerves, who don't understand why you're there. We're in an industry that does not offer fair wage to a lot of educators in general, right? And yet coaches and athletic directors have so much responsibility, and everyone just assumes that sports is always going to be fun and they know what they're doing, right? And that's not the case. And so who coaches the coaches? That's where my fun is. Like I want to make sure that people who are good for youth in sports stay there. I want them to continue to coach and to be with kids for as long as they want, right? And what that means is that coaching Coughlin services are always adult facing. So it's not just self-care, right? But it's how then do we all foster our own relationship to sports, right? Because it's given us so much. For a lot of us that choose to be in this profession, it's given us so much. So how do we make it so that we're always full in order to pour into to young people? So whether that looks like, I joke around with my friends because what that looks like before was just hanging out at the bars and watching games, right? Or going or playing fantasy football. I don't even play fantasy football. I don't even like football. I'm not a very good drinker, but like I will go to bars and stuff if that means I could talk sports with my friends, and then I'll just like nurse one beer, but that's where I gotta go, right? And so when I retired, I was like, we need more spaces. So I just like to create spaces where we could talk sports, where we could talk shop, we could say how hard our work is to one another, right? Because we can't say that to the kids. We can't say that to their parents. We can't tell them how we're struggling with getting all this paperwork in, right? We're struggling with parents who yell at kids. We're struggling with organizations that when we don't have any money, we're struggling to schedule ourselves. We can't even schedule our own time, much less, how are we going to schedule 4 different buses to 3 different sites for 5 teams, things like that. So so coaching Coughlin is, I like to say it's kind of like a medicine for our profession, because the sports profession needs good people to stay in it.
It sounds like you're changing the game, and I hope people will be inspired when they hear this to kind of create that movement, because I know you're doing it for the coaches and for the people working with youth, but we could really use that for everybody, right? For every profession.
Right. So I modeled it after that. Who's caring for the caregivers, right? That sort of paradigm, that sort of framework, where who's supporting the coaches? And we know already that coaches spend a lot of time with kids. You said earlier how much time you spend practicing and doing the sport, right, and stuff. And then there are coaches who literally there are women I know who really have to ask themselves the hard question: Do I want to start a family, or do I want to continue coaching? do I want to, all these life decisions, and not just for women, but I think especially in education, it does impact women more because we represent teachers and the folks in education even more so. So, like, who supports these people? Besides their spouse, and that shouldn't always be the case, right? Like, my husband doesn't need to know all my complaints about my job, right? My colleagues, I should be able to get support from my colleagues, right? And I should be able to give support in that way, right? But in sports, it's so ironic, and the paradox in sports is that it's so competitive, right? So I could be in a room of athletic directors, and all they're talking about, oh my gosh, Jen, all they're talking about is like, my teams are this, like they're talking about the banners on the wall. They're talking about their facilities. They're like, just sports talk, right? So they're all, pulling rank, and they're all posturing, and they're all doing this, and they're throwing out all this, all these records and all these things. And all I want to know is like, what makes you happy about that? Like, and if that's going to keep you, if that's going to get you to work 7 days a week, or to like, what is it about them that has them there in this profession that is very demanding and extractive? And yes, we can talk about all professions in that way. But sports even more so has that competition and has that elitism that we admire in this society. It's valued in our society, right? And so if I'm an athletic director and I don't know what I'm doing, let's say I'm I don't think I really knew kind of what I was doing until I was at least in my maybe 4th or 5th year. I was just posing. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have these programs, and we're going to do this and this, and I'm going to have, I'm like, what am I talking about? I would go home a lot, and I'm like, what did I just say? What did I, And so, I want to be that person to tell people, like, if we're in this together as athletic directors, I need to be able to say, like, how am I going to pull 14-hour days for 2 weeks straight? And I shouldn't, my response would be like, we're not. That's not going to happen. That's why we have a team. That's why we're going to make a team. That's why we got to do all this. We got to do it in a way that's together and not just us. It cannot be just us, because we will burn ourselves out. And then no one cares. To be honest, no one cares. Then they just get a new athletic director. Oof. A new coach, right?
Yeah. That truth hurts. That truth hurts. But
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. I got caught up. I forgot some of my follow-up questions to that. So I apologize.
No worries.
Just a heads up. We actually made it to the final part of the podcast. The hour's kind of flown by.
I know, Jan. I'm long-winded, so.
And
I should have told you that at the beginning.
I fully embrace that. I want you to be long-winded. I want you to feel impassioned and feel open to share anything. So thank you. You brought that energy, and it was perfect. But before we get to the closeout questions, there's this one thing. I don't think Joe did it, but it is called the 34th mantra. I want you to create a mantra on the show. I have these fill in the blanks for you, and the first one is, I am blank.
I am amused.
I I am amused. I like that. The second one is I can blank.
I can do difficult things.
I can do difficult things. And the last one is I will blank.
I will, with other people, kapwatize sports.
Kapwatize sports. And if you ever need a reminder, now you have this little sound bite of yourself giving you a reminder. All right, let's move on to the closeout questions. This next one is from my previous guest. So shout out to my Tita Dina. Her question for you is...
Tita Dina!
Yeah, I just spoke with her on Tuesday morning, because she had to do it from the Philippines. So
wow.
Yeah. So yeah, anytime I do an interview from the Philippines, I always have to get up at 6 a.m. to do it, but it's always worth it, because that's what I gotta do if I want to talk to the world sometimes.
That's right.
Her question for you is, and I think you might have an answer for this already, but is, what do you think you can do to make this world a better place to live?
Yes. What I could do to help make this world a better place to live is to, on the daily, bring Kapwa energy to wherever I'm at. Right? Even if it's online, even if it's virtual, even if it's just a text message or acknowledgement to other people, bringing that reminder to others that we are interconnected.
For sure. I like that. And I think
just to kapwatize.
Kapwatize everything, you know? I'm with it. My next question for you is, what would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 Questions?
I would like to ask the next guest, Okay, I would like to ask the next guest, what, oh my gosh, I just had this question. I just had it in my mind. I was asking myself some of this earlier. I'm in a beautiful setting on vacation with my family right now.
Oh, nice.
And I had this question. Yeah, what would I want for other people to be able to do? Oh, a question that I would ask the next guest is, why is it that I want their thoughts on why it's important that people know themselves.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah.
I'm just writing it down. Gotcha. Definitely interesting to see who will get this next. All right. I mean, that's great. Sometimes I give my guests an option to go either, heavy or light. It's all up to you. But of course, I like the heavy stuff. So thank you for that. And then my final question for you, the question that ties everything together, if our descendants, your great-great-grandchildren, great-great-great-great-grandchildren were watching this video, what would you like to tell them?
I knew this was the last question, Jan, and you're asking me at a time where My oldest son, who's 33, is about to be married. So I'm anticipating perhaps some grandchildren in my near future.
No pressure though, right?
Well, I know. Every time I'm like, no pressure, but
Yeah, I know.
just like, consider me over here, please.
My mom said the same thing.
And I'm still raising a 12-year-old, almost 12. He's 11. So I have two sons who are 22 years apart, growing up in very different contexts, very different generations even. And so I'm almost doing that intergenerational sort of, like, what would you do different? Because I did have a second chance, right, at parenting, at being a better parent. So I see that when I look at my two sons. We talk about it. When I was with my first son, I was a single parent most of that time, and I was much younger, right? So I was growing and maturing also. With my second son, I was much older, much more mature, in a different place in life. So the outlook is different. It's much more different. And I think what I want my eventual descendants, whether that be, in Kapwa, right? If people have any kind of connection to me, whether that's even in, being a twin, even if I don't know them, or in loving sports, even though I don't personally know them, we have a connection to maybe, to different facets in life. And so I kind of want them to know that it's serious, and we can still have fun with it. We can still have fun in discovering ourselves and in our relationships to one another, in our connections to one another. We can still enjoy that, even though it is a responsibility and even though it is heavy. So I think what I want to share with my descendants was that hopefully that we can do difficult things and we can still have fun. So how that shows up in their lives, I'm excited about what that might mean for them. I'm trying my hardest to help that time be lively and real for them, right? So to my descendants, I'm recycling and I'm composting and I'm taking care of the environment. I'm trying to do things to have them consider me in ancestry as someone who did care, who did consider them already. So I think that's it.
That was beautiful. Any last things you'd like to add before we head out of here?
No, thank you. I'm very grateful, Jan, for this opportunity.
No worries, man.
Yeah, for people like you that do this, it is a gift, and you're sharing your gift with us and all the people that come onto your show, and that do this, and I appreciate it.
I'm glad you see it, Carolyn, or you recognize what I'm trying to do.
Recognize game.
Very true. But yeah, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for being like, willing to help me build this thing. I think that's what it is more than anything. Every guest that comes on here is just another person that kind of gives me their brick, and then I'm just stacking these bricks together for all of us to be, building it together kind of thing. So thank you for lending me your brick for the show.
Well, maybe one day I could interview you.
Who knows? I'm definitely open to it. And because I feel like I always, ask the questions more so answer them myself. But yeah, if it's something you want to do in the future, feel free to reach out. Definitely something I'm open to as well.
I'll try to get my twin sister to sign up for you.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you know anyone that would find this valuable, send them my way. And yeah, you saw this through Joe, and hopefully someone who's also going to be inspired to be like, what, I want to do that too. That'd be really cool. So thank you again. I want to thank the folks out there as well who, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or on YouTube, appreciate y'all time as well. If you liked it, please like it. If you loved it, please subscribe and share. Remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace. All right, this is like the ending credit scene. I have a couple of questions for you during this time, and this one is, why did you choose to come onto the show?
Okay. First of all, I saw Joe, Boston, on here, and then I went onto the website, and then 34 was my basketball jersey number.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I thought everything was aligning. So.
For sure. Yeah, no, 34 has been my number ever since I was a kid. Looking up to all the athletes that wore 34, that was my jam. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, 34 Nation, if it ever gets to the point where I can get all the players who've ever worn 34 on here, that'd be crazy. That would be fun, but it would take some time, maybe in a year or so.
Oh my gosh. Jan, are you a hashtag Pinoy baller also?
I was, it's still one of those things where if I'm alone by myself and I have a basketball at a court, yeah, I'm definitely going to be balling. But I've been thinking about joining some adult leagues, actually, just so I can, just try to keep my body moving. But yeah.
All right, I got you on there. There's a lot, and